In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my experience surviving 100 days in Minecraft. I wanted to see how I naturally progressed in the game, as well as set myself some new challenges that I hadn't done before. So I set myself 3 goals. The first goal was to build a cohesive base. I also set myself a sub-challenge to build all of these out of my memory rather than from a reference picture. My second goal, as in most 100 days videos, was to defeat the Ender Dragon. And finally, the third goal was one that I hadn't completed before. Complete a full set of netherite armor. I'd never even gone netherite mining before, let alone crafted an entire set of armor, so this was going to be the biggest challenge for me. Day 1, I set myself up a bed on the coast and decorated my currently non-existent room with a chest and furnace. I decided that in this world I would stay at spawn, as I usually spend way too much time picking a location and not enough time actually progressing and having fun. With that in mind, I found my first bits of iron and set up a small tree farm, or in other words, an area where I spammed down every sapling that I found for the entire series. Day 2, I started working on a janky looking staircase so that I could build up on top of the hill. It was at this moment that I realized how hard my goal of not using reference pictures was actually going to be. Days number 3 and 4, I unfortunately lost the footage to. Basically, I just spent the day creating 3 animal pens at the top of the hill. Day 5, I spent mining for andesite because it's one of my favorite blocks to use in color palettes. I had the bright idea of not wearing headphones at this moment, so understandably this creeper took it as a sign that it was his time to shine. I barely escaped with just 1 heart left. I thanked my lucky stars that I wasn't recording this on a hardcore world, and returned to the surface with a little bit of heart failure. Day 6, the animal pens were looking a bit sad, so I started sprucing them up with the andesite that I had just collected. Day number 7, I realized that I'd skipped a very vital step in the sacred Minecraft process, a reliant food source. I quickly set up a wheat farm next to the ocean to resolve this issue. While I was doing this, a pillager brigade decided it would be a smart idea to invade my newly self-proclaimed land that I totally had rights to and wasn't just a squatter, and I thought their banner would look really great on my sketchy looking staircase. All that banner decorating inspired me to return to finish up both of the sheep and chicken pens with the new fancy stone walls. Day 8, my wheat field wasn't producing nearly enough for my food-loving self, so I began to transfer some water inland so that I could expand. I spent the entire day tilling the ground, jumping on it by accident, and having to till it again. Frustrated with my own utter stupidity, I quickly made myself a path that I could run on without having to worry about damaging the crops. I even had to add an entire fence to barricade myself from accidentally forgetting that the path existed. My attention span never fails to amaze me. Day 10, a family of llamas arrived to say hello, so I did what anyone naturally does when this sort of thing happens. I trapped them in a boat and murdered their parent. Really, they should be thanking me. I just kickstarted their villain origin story. Day 11, I realized that I'd gotten distracted and hadn't even started building a place for me to stay. The cows even had more luxury treatment than me at the moment. So I began terraforming the area next to the animal pens for my house. I was really apprehensive to build this because I have absolutely no trust in my building abilities, which is partially why I challenged myself to not use reference pictures in this video, in hopes that it would force me to actually learn something for once. Day 12, the base of the house existed. I had what resembled a floor plan and a front entranceway. Day 13, I started adding the pillars and the walls in hopes that it would all magically come together eventually. Trusting the chaotic process was pretty much my only method for this entire video. Day 14, I continued to add in some walls and windows, and I added my favorite part of all the house builds, a front entranceway table. I literally have no idea where this pattern started or why I love it so much, but I put them in almost all of my builds. I mean, look at it. It's just small and cute. How could you not love baby entranceway tables? Anyways, back to sanity. Day 15, the backup for the first pillager army arrived and took out my llama friends in their revenge. I could have taken the high road, but I was really enjoying my new collection of banners on my staircase, so I decided to add 1 more. Day 16, I made a staircase so that I could start building to the 2nd floor of my house. Day 17, apparently the inspiration to build was a very fleeting feeling, however, because I just as quickly decided to go exploring the caves. Through fighting off hordes of zombies to get some iron, I realized that if you dye leather boots white, they look surprisingly similar to iron boots. Unfortunately, it wasn't believable enough to scare away the zombies, so I ended up taking my iron and an entire geode and went on my way. Day 19, I stumbled across my very first diamonds in the cave. I exchanged my fake iron boots as a worthy sacrifice, and then ended up finding a double spawner with pretty unnotable loot. There was a golden apple in there though. Day 20, I found another diamond and decided to call it a successful mining trip and head back to the surface. Day 21, I relocated the entire geode onto my house, using calcite as the walls and the basalt for a very, very wonky looking roof. That poor geode had a major glow down once I was done with it. Day 22, I finished up my roof and subsequently the house. I finished it off by adding a lot of final details, like windows, furnaces, a bedroom, and the world's most chaotic chest, officially marking it as my new home. Day 23, I spammed a bunch of lanterns everywhere, wasting the iron that I don't have on pretty points. Hope you enjoyed it. Day 24, my house was looking a bit empty, so I added a kitchen to the first floor. I was inspired to keep interior designing, but apparently no one told me that my interior designing off memory was not a strong suit. But nonetheless, I added a fireplace to the second floor, and spoiler alert, it unfortunately did not burn this place down. I even got a little bit extra fancy and used campfires to add some smoke going through the entire house. Day 27, I realized that I'd become a bit of a hoarder, and rather than cleaning out some of the unnecessary items, I decided that I would begin my next project of a storage barn. I started out by trying a bunch of different entrance designs until I found one that looked alright and started building up the walls with a stone pallet. I filled the front area with chests almost immediately as I didn't want to allow my ADHD to forget that this was the entire point of the build. Then I added an extra pen area in the back for some pigs, and a stable connected to the side of the barn for some horses. Day 31, I created a second floor so that I could begin working on the roof. I chose to go with a basic half-circle design that most barns have, as I lack creativity in most of these situations. Plus, I was trying to keep on the safe side as I didn't have a reference picture. I made the roof outline out of basalt to match the roof of my house, and as I wanted to keep most of my builds looking fairly natural, I eventually settled on using granite for the roof. It's not the best color palette, but I think it ended up looking okay. Day 35, while I was mining for some more coal, I found a lava patch. I took this as a perfect opportunity to grab some obsidian blocks with my new shiny diamond pickaxe. And of course, whenever I'm in a cave, I can't stop myself from collecting a bunch of diamonds while I'm down there. Day 36, I was interrupted mid-diamond hunting by a zombie spawner, where I found a disc, but nothing else too exciting. What really intrigued me was the mossy cobblestone that the dungeon was made out of. Definitely made sure to grab all of that. Day 37, I have major self-control issues. I am at this point still hunting diamonds that I frankly do not need, so I ended up justifying it by giving myself a new task, to build a full set of diamond armor. I ended up exploding probably 20 plus creepers just to get all of these diamonds, so on second thought, getting diamond armor probably was a good idea. Day 38, on my way back to my base, I came across a village that I saw before but I couldn't explore because I had bad omen from the pillagers. I was super excited to finally be able to loot it, and ended up being severely disappointed when all they had to offer me was some hay bales. Luckily, I'd found a total of 25 diamonds on that mining trip, so it wasn't too disappointing. Day 39, I got back to my shack and crafted myself a full set of diamond armor. I then spent the painstaking minute or so to transfer all of the garbage loot that I had collected so far into the barn. Looking back, it didn't actually take that long, but it felt like absolutely ages. While transferring everything, I realized that I had no leather, which I would be needing for enchantments later. So I quickly turned my cows' happy lives in a luxurious pen into a cow crusher and ruined all of their hopes and dreams. Day 40, to try and counter my ruining my cows' perfect lives, I decided to finish out the stable's roof. I didn't end up putting anything in there for quite some time, but I did manage to kidnap some wild pigs and hide them in the back of my barn. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I really countered the cow thing. Oh well. Day 41, I wanted to get an aerial perspective of what my base was beginning to look like, so I went to the edge of the beach and towered up. This accidentally became a tradition by the end of the video to check on the base progress, and I have to say I actually really enjoyed it. It helped me realize where and what I wanted to build, which is how I decided on my next project. Day 44, I began working on my tavern. This was going to house all of my enchanting and nether things, since I figured you'd probably need to be drinking a little to see those kind of things in real life. By the end of the night, I had finished up the walls on the first floor. Day 46, a creeper. That's all I have to say. Explosion. Pain. Waste of time. Anyways, day 47, after that creeper explosion, it was most definitely time to get that bar in. So I added some inverted stairs to try to accomplish this look, and added some right side upstairs as an actual staircase to the second floor. Day 48, I wanted a red carpet to go on the first floor of the tavern, so I went flower picking for some red dye, and it ended up looking absolutely gorgeous. 10 out of 10, really glad I did that because it looks amazing. But more boringly, I started building up the walls to the second floor. Day 49, the wall design was a little tricky as again, it was all coming out of my brain with no reference picture, which was a really bad idea on my part, but now I'm committed. As I finished the floor and the windows, I had my very first customers, and most likely the last. Day 50, I marked out in cobblestone where I wanted everything to go. The nether portal would be right as you walked up the stairs, and the enchant setup would be right in the corner. Day 51, I went mining again. Got some diamonds, some more materials from a geode, and found another spawner. Day 53, I went back to the tavern and started working on the roof. This was really hard to figure out as I'm awful at roofs, and I was building this out of my brain with no reference picture. I tried to add 2 sections to the roof and it just made it way too complicated for my little pea brain to handle, so it looks a little bit wonky. Don't judge me too hard. Day 54, some pillagers showed up to see the tavern, and I ended up adding another banner to the staircase. Day 55, I crafted an enchantment table and started setting up some bookshelves. I also added in the obsidian for the nether portal, and after crafting some flint and steel, I hopped in to check out our nether spawn. Day 56, the nether spawn was very, very scary. I spawned on some trees with a bunch of pigs all around me, so I decided to backtrack for some better gear before I started adventuring. Day 57, I went back into the nether with some gold armor and ingots to please the piglin gods. I saw that there was another fortress at the spawn, so I decided to take a quick look. Day 58, I found a blaze spawner and farmed blaze rods until I had enough. I used one of the blaze rods to quickly make a brewing stand so that I could really sell the idea that this was a tavern on the first floor. I then realized very quickly that I had no idea how to actually brew potions. That's a task for another day though. Day 61, I decided to go mining again. This time my brain thought it was a good idea to mine in a water cave. Needless to say, it didn't take long before I ended up drowning. I had to find my way all the way back down into the cave just to get my things back. Day 62, I fought my way back up to the surface and started finishing up the trim to the tavern. Day 63, I wanted to get going on netherite mining as I'd never gone netherite mining before, and I didn't want to save it until the last minute and find out it was super hard. So in the nether, I dug to the right Y level and immediately found some ancient debris. Day 64, my quick success in netherite mining gave me a false idea that I was going to get full netherite way easy. Boy, was I wrong. So with my false confidence, I started getting sidetracked, building a retaining wall so that my tree area looked a little bit prettier. Day 66, I headed back into the nether to trade with the piglins. I was looking for ender pearls so that we could defeat the ender dragon. I also went back into my strip mine and picked up the netherite that I'd found earlier with my diamond pickaxe. While on my way back, I ended up getting cornered by a wither skeleton and a hog, resulting in yet another death. I'm still so glad that I didn't do this challenge in hardcore mode. Eventually, I was able to sneak my way back and found all of my things. I finished up the retaining wall around my tree farm and added a few more bits of terraforming and finally moved on from that area. After that, I realized that the tree farm needed a little bit of an upgrade too. Day 70, I cleared out all the trees and began working on a fence to go around the tree farm. Day 72, with a dedicated fenced-in area, I moved to the sugarcane from the beach into the tree area. I also added a path for decoration. But before I could continue, some pillagers ended up arriving to say hello, and I added a third banner to the bridge. Really bagging up a collection here. Day 74, I built a gate design for the fences and struggled to make it look quite right. I realized in this moment that I both loved and hated building from my own memory. To make myself feel a little bit better, I ended up adding some blocks around the trees to make it look like they had some planters. I then had to figure out the average height of a small tree because I didn't want any of the big trees growing in this area. Day 75, I realized that if I build up roughly 9 blocks and put a half slab, it stops the big trees from growing. But of course, right as I was doing this, a big huge tree just had to grow out of pure spite. By the end of day 75, I had all of my trees planted, the big tree cut down, and they were all going to be growing up to the right height. Day 76, I decided to take a look from my vantage point, and it was looking beautiful. The only part that I didn't like was the wheat field on the right against the edge of the coast where I originally built it at the beginning of the video. So I made my way down and went over and cleared out all the wheat and jumped on every single block so that it would turn back into grass. Day 77, I began building another staircase, only this time on the left side of my town. This one connected the tree farm to the second layer of all my builds. This was when I realized I was playing my game on full brightness, which is a mod that I have installed so that the game looks a little bit better for YouTube. So I turned it down a little bit and stayed up all night to light up my area so mobs would stop spawning. Day 78, I was back up to my vantage point. I told you it started getting to be a bad habit. It definitely looked much better without the wheat and with the added staircase. Days 79 through 87, I realized that I needed to get a move on finding some netherite. So I began strip mining in the nether for the next 8 days straight. I ended up finding 4 ancient debris and turned it into a netherite ingot. I then returned to the nether not long after and found even more ancient debris, just enough for 2 ingots. I quickly crafted myself a smithing table and made my pants and boots into netherite, but I was a little bit stumped on whether I should turn my chest plate or my helmet into netherite. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to get the whole set, so I was trying to determine which would look better, to be honest, in a thumbnail. But as I started panicking as the days started ticking down, I realized that I should probably try to defeat the ender dragon as well, because that one was a little bit easier than finding a whole other netherite ingot. So on the night of day 88, I spent all night hunting for endermen because I was having a hard time getting pearls from the pigmen. But I didn't really have much success with this method either, if I'm being honest. On day 89, I enchanted a bunch of my gear with some better enchants, then headed back into the nether to try to trade with the piglins for some pearls. I also at this point finally went and thoroughly searched the fortress, pulling out all the loot that it had to offer, mainly saddles. Day 90, it was getting very close to the end and I really needed pearls. I was desperately trading with any piglin I could find at this point, and that's when I came across an open area while I was searching for gold. I quickly realized that this area had a bastion hidden under the ground. I'd never really been inside one before, so I was very careful to make my way in. And to my surprise, there was actually a lot of unguarded chests on the roof. I found enough gold and enough netherite that I was ready to head on home. So on day 92, I first needed to trade enough gold with the pigmen to get some pearls. Once I felt that I had enough, I portaled my way out of the nether and spawned in an ocean on top of an ocean monument. Now, as much as I wanted to explore this, I realized that I may need to save this for a 200 days video if that's something you guys want, because I definitely did not have time for this. On day 94, I returned home and emptied my entire inventory. I turned my chestplate into netherite and prepared myself as much as I could for the dragon fight. I crafted all of my Eyes of Ender, gathered up some food, and repaired all of my things. But first, I realized there was something that I had entirely forgotten. I quickly ran out into the meadow in search of a horse to fill the stable that I had left empty this entire video. I then returned and put him into the stable. I think I will name him Philip. No real reason, it just sounds like a really majestic horse name. Now that I had that figured out, I returned to preparing for the Ender Dragon fight. I brewed up a bunch of slow falling potions, crafted my last netherite ingot, and applied it to my helmet, officially getting the Cover Me in Debris achievement. That felt super cool. On day 96, I said one final goodbye to my area before setting off in the direction of my first pearl. Day 97, I made my way through the terrain until I found the area that the eyes were pointing towards. I dug my way down, hoping to find the stronghold easier through a cave entrance. Although I didn't find a stronghold, I did find a few diamonds in a mine shaft. But it was the stronghold that I was after, so I kept digging around until I found it. I crafted myself up a bed and set my spawn before stealing a few bookshelves, and then I felt ready to fight the dragon. Day 98, I set up a bunch of spare things in a chest in case I died, activated the portal, and made sure to set my spawn. This was probably the most I'd ever been prepared for an Ender Dragon fight. On day 99, equipped with my slow falling potions and some buckets of water, I began making my way up each tower to take out the crystals. After a few close calls from the dragon breath almost killing me, I eventually took out every single crystal. I made my way to the center of the island each time the dragon perched and began to slowly take off some of its health until finally the dragon was defeated, and I had a bunch of levels that I had no idea what to do with. And as much as I wanted to go find an elytra and fly my way home to victory, I was unfortunately out of time. So I hopped through the portal, forgetting that I'd set my spawn at the stronghold, so I had to dig my way all the way back up to the surface and head back home for some nice B-roll shots of my little town. Recording these 100 days was definitely a learning experience, both having to play through the 100 days and having to edit the 100 days. and it was definitely a learning curve that I enjoyed, so I hope you enjoyed watching as well. If you did, please consider leaving a like as it lets me know that you enjoyed this content, and consider subscribing because I would love to see you guys in the next video.